Hello, everyone. A pleasant day to all of you. Welcome to our first lesson in our effort to study environmental science. In this lecture, I will discuss to you two of the most important concepts of environmental science: the human environment concept and the ecosystem services. Okay, so let's start. Let us begin our discussion by first defining what is an ecosystem. The ecosystem concept was originally defined as a biological community consisting of plants, animals, and microbes called the biotic complex, interacting with a physical environmental complex consisting of soils, water, air, and physical conditions such as temperature and wind, all in a specified area or what we call the system boundary. The human ecosystem combines these components of the ecosystem with the built complex, like human structures, designs, including equipments or tools that we use, and the social complex or characteristics. Examples are the institutions, policies, and norms, culture, and other ways of life. In this framework, we can see the key aspects of the human ecosystem. These are: number one, the spatial boundary, the yellow dash line, the physical, biological, social, and engineered or built components. And number three, the interactions among the components in blue arrows. And number four, which is not shown here, are the feedbacks and controls that result from the interactions with the ecosystem. And this could be positive feedbacks or negative feedbacks, which are imposed by conditions that exist outside the ecosystem, so outside this boundary. And human ecosystems are open in nature, as depicted by this dashed line, which means that there are factors outside the boundary that could come in and out of the system, like energy and material flow. Similar to the human ecosystem framework, the socio-ecological system concept, as presented here, describe the two crucial components of human ecological system: the social and ecological component. In this concept, both the social system and the ecosystem with which it interacts retain their integrity as a system, depicted by their own circular boundary, with each changing its structural configuration according to its internal dynamics or processes. At the same time, however, it is recognized that each system receives energy, material, and information from the other, and these inputs also influence the structure and functioning of each subsystem. From these complex interactions, humans are benefiting. People continuously modify ecosystems, either to satisfy livelihood needs, to gain economic benefits, or to adapt to social and environmental changes. Example of interactions in socio-ecological systems are the production of ecosystem services. The ecosystem services represent the nature's benefit to people. And because ecosystem services are produced in socio-ecological systems, both ecosystem processes and human actions contribute to deliver ecosystem services. Before we proceed with the discussion of the different ecosystem services, I want to bring your attention first to the concept of sustainability. Sustainability in ecological sense is the ability of the Earth's various natural systems and human cultural systems, including our economies, to survive and adapt to changing environmental conditions indefinitely, meaning surviving and adapting not only now but up to the future of our futures. Did you know that life on the Earth has sustained itself for more or less 3.5 billion years? Mhm. Ecologists strongly believe that the long-term sustainability of life on this planet in the face of drastic environmental changes has depended on three key factors as illustrated here. Can you guess? Yes, the one on top is solar energy, at the lower right is biodiversity, and at the lower left is chemical cycling. Let us discuss them one by one. Reliance on solar energy is the first. So the sun warms the planet and provides energy that plants use to produce food for themselves and for us and most of other animals. Without the sun, there would be no plants, no animals, and no food. The sun also powers indirect forms of solar energy such as wind and flowing water, which can be used to produce, electricity. The second one is biodiversity, short for biological diversity. It includes the astounding variety of different organisms from the deserts, grasslands, forests, oceans, and other systems in which they exist and interact. And the free natural services such as soil renewal, pest control, and air and water purification that these species and systems provide. Without biodiversity, most life would have been wiped out long ago. And the third one, chemical cycling. So natural processes recycle nutrients or chemicals that plants and animals need to stay alive and reproduce. Because the earth gets no new shipment of these chemicals, they must be continuously cycled from organisms to their non-living environment and back. Without chemical cycling, there would be no air, no water, no soil, no food, and no life. Okay, let us now discuss ecosystem services. Ecosystems have potential to supply a range of services that are of fundamental importance to human well-being, health, livelihoods, and survival. Different ways of defining ecosystem service have been developed. So far, they can be described as the benefits that people obtain from ecosystems, or as the direct and indirect contribution of ecosystems to human well-being. In economic sense, the Venn diagram presented here shows the interaction between the built, social, human, and natural capital required to produce human well-being. And ecosystem cannot provide any benefit to people without the presence of human capital, their communities, and their built environment. Thus, ecosystem services should be perceived as a contribution of the natural capital to human well-being, which forms only by the interaction with human, social, and built capital. To understand further the interface between people and nature, the realization of ecosystem services is illustrated by the so-called ecosystem services cascade framework. This model describes the pathway of causal interrelations between ecosystem at one end and the human well-being at another. The ecosystem within this model is characterized by its biophysical structure and processes. The biological physical structure, in a simpler way, can be labeled as habitat type. Examples would be woodland, it could be a wetland, or it could be a grassland. While processes refers to the dynamics and interactions forming the ecological system. Example would be primary production, or how well an ecosystem convert and restore energy from the sun. The ecosystem functions in the context of the cascade model are understood as the characteristics or behavior of the ecosystem that underpins its capacity to deliver an ecosystem service. Example would be the ability of woodland or grassland to generate a standing stock of biomass, or the one we can see in that ecosystem, those green biomass that they produce, and including those brown biomass that they produce. Those elements and features which are behind the ecosystem capacity to deliver services are sometimes called the supporting or intermediate services, while the final ecosystem service is what we actually can harvest. For example, would be fruits, timber, and many more. Or gain from ecosystem. Example would be flood protection, beautiful landscape, and many more. The final services directly contribute to human well-being through the benefits that they support to society. Example would be health and safety. So people are used to assign values to these benefits. Therefore, they are also called or referred to as goods and products. The value can be expressed in many different ways using monetary value as well as moral, aesthetic, or other qualitative criteria. The Millennium Ecosystem Assessment has developed a classification system proposing four main ecosystem services categories. And these are the provisioning services. Examples are food, material and energy, fresh water, fuel, among others, which are directly used by people. And the second one is regulating services, includes those that cover the way ecosystems regulate other environmental media or processes. The third one is cultural services, referring to those related to the cultural or spiritual needs of people. And last but not the least, the supporting services, those ecosystem processes and functions that underpin the other three types of services. What is so good about this classification system by the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment is that it describes the links, the intensity of linkages, and the socioeconomic mediation between ecosystem services and human well-being. Human well-being has five main components: the basic material for good life, health, good social relations, and security, and freedom of choice and action. The last component is influenced by other constituents of well-being as well as by other factors, including notably, just like what we are doing now, education, and is also a precondition for achieving other components of well-being, particularly with respect to equity and fairness. Paying attention to the direction of arrows, it only shows that ecosystems underpin human well-being through supporting, provisioning, regulating, and cultural services it provides. And how do we humans influence the integrity of these services? One would be the quality of human services. Another would be our technology. And the last, our institutions. Now let's go to the main course of this lesson, the enumeration of the different benefits we get from nature and the threats they are facing. We will have first the different provisioning services. First in our list is we have food. Ecosystems provide the conditions for growing food. Food comes principally from managed agroecosystems, or the one we are familiar with, agriculture. Other sources would be from marine and freshwater systems, forest, and urban horticulture. Another ecosystem service would be the provision of raw materials. Ecosystem provide a great diversity of materials for construction and fuel, including wood, biofuels, and plant oils that are directly derived from the wild and cultivated plant species. For these two provisioning services, food and raw materials, we should understand that these are provided by a combination of functioning ecosystems, human innovation, and technology. These services are mainly provided by the soil, biodiversity, and water resources that, if used properly, would provide us sufficient energy sources, food security, and productive economy. The demand for these life-sustaining services increases as population continues to grow. Over the past several decades, over exploitation of resources has been a significant stressor in many parts of the world. Increasing population are driving land use changes, resulting in more forested and agricultural lands being converted for residential, commercial, and transportation uses. Climate change is also an important driver of change. Climate change can alter species composition and may affect our ability to grow specific crops in certain areas. Climate changes also make some areas more prone to pests and infestations. Still in provisioning services, next we have provision of medical resources. Biodiverse ecosystems provide many plants used as traditional medicines as well as providing raw materials for the pharmaceutical industry. Take note that all ecosystems are a potential source of medicinal resources. Now let's go to regulating services. First, we have local climate and air quality regulation. We know for a fact that trees and green space lower the temperature in cities and town centers while forests influence rainfall and water availability both locally and regionally. Trees or other plants also play an important role in regulating air quality by removing pollutants from the atmosphere. In a bigger picture, ecosystems influence air quality by emitting chemicals to the atmosphere or extracting chemicals from the atmosphere. Very much related to this regulating service is the provision of clean air. To help produce clean air, natural resources such as wetlands, trees, soil filter many pollutants from our air. Some of these pollutants include carbon monoxide, ozone, particulate matter, and nitrogen oxides. There are multiple factors that affect clean air, including natural factors and human activities. Natural factors can include wildfires, extreme weather events, and volcanic emissions. Air pollution created by human activities such as certain land management practices, crop fertilization, and vehicular and industrial emissions are examples of the human activities that also serve as driver of change in regards to air quality. And of course, climate change also affects the quality of air in some areas. Another regulating service is carbon sequestration and storage. Ecosystems regulate the global climate by storing greenhouse gases. As trees and plants grow, they remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and effectively lock it away in their tissues, thus acting as carbon stores or carbon sinks. One relevant issue that we have today that is much related to carbon sequestration is climate change. But we should understand that Earth's climate is constantly changing on geologic timescales ranging from centuries to thousands of millennia. For example, would be periods of widespread volcanism before, we have cooling or ice ages before, and many more. Most species, including humans, have evolved or adapted to survive and flourish under such slowly changing patterns of temperature and precipitation averages, variability, and extremes. Recently, these patterns have been changing more rapidly in response to increased level of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere that produce the greenhouse effect. Healthy, properly functioning ecosystems and natural resources such as soils, oceans, vegetation, all living things and non-living things in an area, as well as the interactions between them can reduce or stabilize this rate of change through the long-term capture and storage of carbon. This process is known as carbon sequestration. By storing carbon and modifying local climate conditions, our natural resources provide a means to stabilize rapidly changing climate conditions. And while we are battling through mitigation and adaptation to climate change effects, one significant help we get from nature is the moderation of extreme events. Extreme events is synonymous to natural hazard, and properly functioning ecosystems help mitigate their effects. Weather-related natural hazards such as floods, fires, heat extremes, droughts, and typhoons can potentially devastate large number of people, property, crops, and natural resources. Healthy ecosystems and good agricultural practices benefit humans in many ways, including helping to mitigate some of the effects of these natural hazards. Vegetated land cover intercepts and absorbs water, retaining it and slowing its movement, helping to reduce flooding and its subsequent effects. Vegetated stream buffers help absorb water also along streams and rivers, which also reduces flooding by holding excess water. These buffers are especially important in urban areas where significant amounts of stormwater runoff can inundate streams during precipitation events. In marine and coastal environments, coral reefs and coastal marshes offer shoreline protection in coastal regions and help reduce the impacts of storms, including erosion by acting as physical barrier and reducing wind and wave energy. Vegetative cover is also important for reducing temperature on micro and macro scales. Vegetation helps to shade areas and reduce surface temperatures, mitigating the potential public health effects of extreme heat. Maintaining cover crops over soils and limiting tillage helps minimize the impacts of droughts on crops. So, without the protection provided by natural resources and ecosystems, the detrimental effects of natural hazards would likely be more catastrophic. And again, the drivers of change to this service is land management, climate, biodiversity loss, and the hydrologic alteration of our streams and rivers. Another essential regulating service is wastewater treatment. Ecosystems such as wetlands filter effluents as well as decomposes organic waste and harmful pollutants in water by trapping them or rendering it less harmful. Through the biological activity of microorganisms in the soil, most waste is broken down. Thereby, pathogens or the disease causing microbes are eliminated, and the level of nutrients and pollution is reduced. Another important regulating service is the prevention of soil erosion and maintenance of soil fertility. Soil erosion is a key factor in the process of land degradation, desertification, and hydroelectric capacity through siltation of streams and rivers. Vegetation cover provides a vital regulating service by preventing soil erosion. Vegetation cover retains soil, coral reefs on the marine environment, protect coastal areas from coastal erosion, forest on slopes holding soil, and they keep them in place, thereby preventing landslides. Pollination, or the transfer of pollen from male to female flower parts, is another important regulating service provided by nature. Animal pollination is an ecosystem service mainly provided by insects and also provided by some birds and bats. Insects and wind pollinate plants, which is essential for the development of fruits, vegetables, and seeds. Healthy functioning ecosystems are important for regulating pest and vector-borne diseases that attack plants, animals, and people. This is otherwise known as biological control. Ecosystems regulate pests and diseases through the activities of predators, parasites, birds, bats, flies, wasps, frogs, and some other animals, including fungi, all act as natural controls. Sometimes, ecosystems also provide disease regulation by limiting the incidence and abundance of human pathogens. For example, intact forest could reduce the occurrence of standing water that could be a breeding area for mosquitoes, and thereby can reduce the prevalence of some diseases like malaria, dengue, and other diseases. Healthy ecosystems also regulate the prevalence of crop and livestock pests and diseases. Like, for example, predators from nearby forests could consume crop pests, such as those predators like bats, toads, and snakes. And now we go to the supporting services. These services underpin the quality and delivery of other ecosystem services. Ecosystems provide habitat for species, or everything that an individual plant or animal needs to survive, like food, water, and shelter. Each ecosystems provide different habitats that can be essential for the species life cycle. Even migratory species, including birds, fish, mammals, and insects, all depend upon different ecosystems during their movement to survive. Second is the maintenance of genetic diversity. Genetic diversity, or the variety of genes between and within species populations, distinguishes different breeds or races from each other, providing the basis for locally well-adapted cultivars and a gene pool for developing commercial crops and livestock. Some habitats have an exceptionally high number of species, which makes them more genetically diverse than others and are known as biodiversity hotspots. Our country, the Philippines, is identified as one of these biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity does not only support us through recreation, culture and aesthetics, public health, and genetic diversity, but is essential to the existence and proper functioning of all ecosystems. Habitat loss is a challenge for virtually all species as humans convert natural habitats to other land uses, aggravated further by pollution, recreation overuse, and intended and unintended introduction of invasive species. Overexploitation from extractive uses is another threat, such as commercial fishing and game hunting. These can greatly reduce species numbers, sometimes even to the brink of extinction. We now come to the fourth but equally important benefit we get from nature, that is, cultural services, defined here as the non material benefit people obtain from contact with ecosystems. Let us take cities as an example. Walking and playing sports in green space is a good form of physical exercise and helps people to relax. The role that green space plays in maintaining mental and physical health is increasingly becoming recognized. We don't want to jog or go biking in a very busy and crowded streets. Rather, we always go to places where nature is of abundant growth, where air and ambient temperature is fresh and comfortable. Ecosystems and biodiversity also play an important role for many kinds of tourism, which in turn provides considerable economic benefits and is a vital source of income for many countries. Especially in this time of pandemic, many people are longing and missing their time visiting these natural wonders of nature. Cultural tourism and ecotourism is also a special time to commune with nature, which can also educate people about the importance of biological diversity. Nature has also become the center for aesthetic appreciation and inspiration for culture, arts, and design. Language, knowledge, and the natural environment have been intimately related throughout human history. Biodiversity, ecosystems, and natural landscapes have been the source of inspiration for much of our art, culture, and increasingly for science. And of course, nature as medium for spiritual experience and sense of place. In many parts of the world, natural features such as specific forests, caves, or mountains are considered sacred or have a religious meaning. Nature is a common element of all major religions, and traditional knowledge and associated customs are important for creating a sense of belonging. To sum up these cultural services, nature has served a huge contribution to our active lifestyle in releasing stress and renewal through recreation and cultural imprints. But sometimes, if not most of the time, we tend to put less premium to these services through overuse, misuse, and overexploitation. Okay, so there you have it. The different examples of ecosystem services we get from nature group into four categories. These are the provisioning, regulating, supporting, and cultural services. As a takeaway for this lecture, I would like to leave you that the capacity of the ecosystem to supply services for human well-being directly depends on the ecosystem condition, its structure and processes. While increasing the pressure on ecosystem or by changing the land use type and thus fundamentally impacting or destroying the previous ecosystem, people influence the ecosystem service supply or trade-offs between different services. For example, by draining a wetland, people can get arable land and thus valuable food products, but at the same time lose such services as flood protection, natural habitats, and species diversity as well as possibilities for nature tourism. In counting together all the benefits in monetary or other valuation system, the value of wetland most probably would be much higher than the value of arable land. Many of the decisions we make, from how to develop community infrastructure to managing the land surrounding our communities, impact the provision of ecosystem services. As my final ending message, if we consider the true value of ecosystem services in our policies and decision making, this would valuably help us better manage our resources in a way that would benefit us economically, environmentally, and socially. So that's it. Thank you and keep safe.